Hey folks, welcome to another video from a plaintruth.info. Spermageddon. Now there's an agenda afoot and we're going to cover it and we're going to get into it, and it's not pretty, but still needs to get out there, folks. Sorry, it can't be better news, but this is the way it's going and we need to address it. We need to stand up. We came here for a reason, and that was to address these major league concerns about the continuation of humanity on Earth, especially for our children, which we'll get into in a little bit. So this is from a January 27th article the other day. Human race could be infertile in 50 years, researchers claim. A series of studies has shown a sharp decline in the sperm count of men during the last few decades. One researcher made a bleak prediction that will be infertile in 50 years. That's 2 generations from now. Continuing, they're talking about stress and whatnot as being a cause, but a 2012 report represented the results of the study. Over 26,000 Frenchmen had fallen by a third in 1989 and 2005. A 2000 report in the UK presented the studies have done on one city. Sperm counts had declined 29% between 1989 and 2002. Recently, summer of 2017, Hebrew University, from over 43,000 North American, European, Australian, New Zealand men, concluded the average sperm count had fallen by almost 60% in the last 40 years. Now, a great number of that is within the last decade or two. And that needs to be addressed as all. But here's another article. This is from July 25th, 2017, kind of chronicling the research from the Hebrew study. It was not any small study. It was 185 studies, included almost 43,000 males who provided sperm samples. The chosen studies were distributed over nearly 40 years and among 50 different countries. The analysis included information on fertility status, age, ejaculation, abstinence time, semen collection method, sperm count method, and geographic location at those levels. So it was a very well done study. It is being well corroborated. And there's reasons for this, and we got to get into it. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term company Epicite. It was allegedly bought by Monsanto and DuPont. Let me tell you a little bit about Epicite, if you don't know already. GM corns contain Epicite gene. Now, this is Spermageddon. This is spermicide, folks. And this is a study, a peer-reviewed study and everything by Austrian scientists. While there are many harmless genetically modified crops, I debate that have been around for centuries, there are others that have potential to cause irreversible sterility. Those GM crops contain the Epicite gene. The Epicite gene, named for the corporation that created it, Epicite Pharmaceuticals, activates a rare class of antibodies that attack sperm. How did Epicite Pharmaceuticals do this? By isolating the genes that regulate the manufacture of these spermicidal antibodies. But like other forms of pharmaceutical birth control, once a man or a woman has been affected or infected, it is permanent. There is no known way to reduce its effect. Well, is this true? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. The Austrian government, via the Austrian Agency for Health and Food Safety, sponsored a long... Now, these guys pay for their health care. This is why they're concerned, because it's not a for-profit private business like in the United States. So they're concerned because their costs go up. Feeding mice with genetically modified corn developed by Monsanto led to lower fertility, body, and weight. The laboratory mice were split into 2 groups. The mice who were fed non-GMO corn continued to reproduce normally. All right? And then here is a picture of the decline that's showing you in graphic detail, and look at how it's increasing on the way down, and it's even getting worse since 2004. But what I really want to bring your attention to is this article here. This is from a very excellent website that I highly encourage you all to just pore over. Scientists for Wired Technology, advocacy based on scientists' research of the hazards of pulsed, data-modulated radio frequency microwave radiation. And it gets well into it about the schools and about the cell tower, small cells, 4G LTE, 5G coming. It's very, very good site I'm going to post on my website. So classrooms RF microwave. So the gentleman that runs the Scientists for Wired Technology conducted a study here in Petaluma, California at Valley Vista Elementary School. Very, very thorough study using Cisco's wireless router. And it's been irradiating teachers and children in the classroom. The pulsed data modulated RF microwave frequencies exposures in classrooms exceeded federal maximum public guidelines many times every day based on total cumulative radiation exposure. This cumulative calculation method was confirmed by senior FCC and OSHA engineers. Now what they do is they take the average, they measure the highs and the lows, and these are pulse frequencies, and so they get an average that is not accurate. It doesn't show the highs, it shows the average based on a pulsed zero reading and a high reading. And they don't do it cumulative over time. It's just a one shot. Here it's outputting, and this is the efficacy of it, the dangers of it, of the output of just one moment in time, not over the course of a day. So what he did was he calculated over the course of a day of students sitting in a classroom. The actual totals could be 25 to 30 times higher when students are using wirelessly connected iPads, Chromebooks, or laptops. In the year 2016-17, in 100 school days, 1,080 hours, the Valley Vista School exposed its kindergarten students and teachers to 13.6 billion microwatts a second of RF microwave radiation, 1,360 times higher than the Federal Communications Adult Maximum Public Exposure Guideline of 10 million microwave. So 13.6 billion versus 10 million acceptable. And we already know the FCC's guidelines are very, very lenient against promoting health. Unbelievably, now it's believable to me, the Valley Vista School did the same in 2014, 15, 16, and 17, is choosing to do the same in 17. After four full years, the students and teachers in the classroom have been exposed to over 52 billion microwatts a second of pulse data modulated radio frequency modulation. It's absolutely killing the sperm and causing infertility in children, folks. That was told to me directly by the owner of this site. And this is one of the goals, I am sure, of its Wi-Fi radiation. So here you can see it's pulsed out from the center and it goes outward from there. So let's look at the data coming up here of the student irradiations, okay? So 17,500 microwatts metered on 8/22/13. Maximum public exposure, as we said, was 10,000, 100 hertz, 100 pulses. But look at all the data as it gets higher by the guidelines. Over 1,000 hours a day, it's this 13.6 billion. All right. So here's what the gentleman used in the calculations for anybody that wants to check up on his information. And he talks about energy being transformed. Energy is transformed from one to another, cannot be created or destroyed. That's really important to understand. The FCC maximum exposure guidelines for RF microwave radiation cannot be relied upon because it is not protective, not reflective of current scientific understanding, and based on 3 fallacies. And then all his work input is in here, which I'll put in the show notes as well. So his conclusion, 30 minutes of unprotected exposure to midday sun will give us a suntan, but hours will cause likely sunburn. Same thing happens when we cook a potato in a microwave. Once cooked, and it can be overcooked by too much time. It doesn't help you know that just the instantaneous measurement of power density, and this is what the FCC measures, just the instantaneous measurement, just a one time, not the cumulative effect of sitting under Wi-Fi for hours at a time. The fact that the Federal Microwave Radiation Guideline has no concept of total power delivery over time is insane. What if there were 24 wireless devices in the room totaling 240 million microwatts? The FCC does not address this. 75.6 million is 7.5 times higher than 10 million. That's the truth that opens the door to finally shine the light on the fallacies of the federal maximum public exposure guidelines to RF microwave radiation. The bottom line is, get your kids out of school that have Wi-Fis in the classroom. I'm sorry to have to say this, but it is killing the sperm. This is part of the genocide. It's part of the agenda of the Georgia Guidestones and the New World Order, where what are people for? As robots are replacing everything, and we are getting radiated out of existence, and they're generationally killing off the sperm of our children. This should make you very upset. And to bring this home to one final document, and we'll wrap this up, back to this book, excellent book by Admiral William Carr, who was a Canadian Naval Intelligence. This was written in 1960. I highly, highly hope that you can get this book. I'll put in the PDFs and read it. It is very important to understand. But here it gets into the overall agenda that is being put in place. Now remember, this is from 1959. I think he died in 1960 and his son finished this book. But William Carr, Admiral Carr wrote, and again, he was in the Canadian Naval Intelligence, so he had some knowledge. He worked for the British Royal Navy as well. After the human race has been turned into a vast conglomeration of humanity, breeding will be limited to types and numbers considered sufficient to fill the requirements of the state. Artificial insemination will be used to accomplish this purpose. Less than, the number isn't right here, hang on. So he cites Admiral Carr, Canadian Naval Intelligence, and also worked with the British Royal Navy. He would know this information, wrote in 1959. I think he died in 1960, and his son finished this book. According to Bertrand Russell on page 49 to 51 of his book, The Impact of Science on Society, less than 5% of males and 30% of females will be selected from the goyim, which is cattle, which is chattel, which is us, to be used for breeding purposes, and reproduction will be achieved by artificial insemination practiced on an international scale. Investigation has proved that experiments are now being conducted in both Canada and the United States to determine if the semen of human males cannot be preserved and kept fertile indefinitely, the same as the semen taken from prize bulls. Recent discoveries have made it possible to keep semen taken from bulls indefinitely by freezing quickly to temperatures of approximately 130 degrees below zero. Can you say cryogenic freezing? Already, huge banks have been established in which several million samples of graded semen are stored. Orders received for a particular type or strain can be flown to any part of the world. Smaller banks are now being established in suitable locations to serve the needs of the cattle-raising states. The statement is fact, not fiction. And at the end of his book, he quotes from The Hidden Secrets of the Eastern Star by Dr. Kathy Burns. This is a symbol of Baphomet, the devil, Satan, Lucifer. I know they're different terms, but some apply differently, some are the same. But the symbol of Baphomet represents the power of the darkness combined with the generative fertility of the goat. Remember the G inside the Freemason sign? Generative. In its pure form, the pentagram as shown on the front cover is encompassing the figure of a man and the 5 points of the star, symbolizing man's spiritual nature. Satanism represents the carnal instinct of man, or the opposite of the spiritual nature. It's the death of our spirit, folks. The end of our souls is what they're after here. In Satanism, the pentagram is inverted to perfectly accommodate the head of the goat. Its horns represent duality and the thrust upwards in defiance. The Hebraic figures encircling the symbol are found in the Kabbalah and spell out Leviathan, which is the serpent of the watery abyss and identified with Satan. So in addition, this is from my Taboo blog, and I'll put this in the show notes as well. I did back in 2016 about Wi-Fi radiation and the build-out and all the dangers associated with it. And since then, it's been increased many-fold. But at 1/10,000th of a watt, the blood-brain barrier opens, allowing blood proteins to disrupt brain signals and start killing brain cells. A cell phone transmits at 2 watts. Now, again, this was back in 3G days, so what does it do now? 5G is going to be 2,000% above 4G, folks. 2,000% more radiation. Just 2 minutes on a cell phone or near a router portable short circuits the electrical ion activity powering the blood-brain barrier. This allows proteins and other blood toxins to enter the brain and resume damaging neurons in thinking and memory centers. Dr. Leif Salford finding astonishing number of dead neuron cells actually suffering holes in their brains from the damage caused by a single cell phone. No wonder wireless altered brains lead to lack of concentration, memory loss, aggressive behavior, accelerated aging, impaired learning ability, and dementia. Fibrils of proteins clumping in electromagnetically altered brains are identifying characteristic of Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, fibromyalgia, MS, and cancer patients. Quote, there is strong evidence that microwaves are associated with accelerated aging, enhanced cell death and cancer, and moods, depression, suicide, anger, rage, and violence, primarily through alteration of cellular calcium ions on the melatonin-serotonin balance. writes veteran EMF researcher Dr. Neil Sherry in New Zealand. Now, this is also very interesting. Here's the company Artemis, and what are they bringing in? They've got the Wi-Fi routers, huh? Look at the symbolism. That's the goddess of fertility, folks. Look at this thing. It's as a reproductive function that appears to be literally turned upside down by wireless. They're showing and telling us Artemis was also the god of the hunt. How ironic, as each wireless device is targeted as a directed energy beam, as implied on another one of their corporate logos. So here we see a Wi-Fi and a laptop. You know where the Wi-Fi is? It's the closest to your reproductive organs, folks. And look at the children. Look at the children. Total fertility rates, as I said, are dropping off. And then here we get into the Georgia Guidestones, which I actually went to Alberton County, and looked for myself, and it's really real. Someone really has the intention. They spent tens of millions of dollars to put up these monoliths, declaring that we're overpopulated by 95%. Bill Gates, when the tests are aligned to the common standards, the curriculum will line up as well, talking about the Common Core and whatnot. So, you know, there's a lot of evidence. And in closing, if you don't think this is the intention of the world elite, the powers that be, the Jesuits, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, all those guys that are in the power bases, I'll put this in the show notes, 22 shocking quotes on population reduction by people in power. Bill Gates, the world has 6.8 billion people, heading to 9 billion. If we do a really great job on vaccines, if we can get that down by perhaps 10 to 15%, Obama's top science advisor, Holdren, a program of sterilizing women after their second and third child, despite the relative difficulty, might be easier to implement than trying to sterilize men. Nah, they found a way to do it. It's called Wi-Fi, folks. George W. Bush's science advisor, Paul Ehrlich, each person we add now disproportionately impacts on the environment and life-supporting systems, on and on and on. Jacques Cousteau, in order to stabilize world population, we must eliminate 350,000 people of a day. Ted Turner, population, here we go, Georgia Guidestones, 250 to 300 million people, or 95% decline from present levels. It goes on and on. Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger, who was also funded by the Rockefellers, birth control must lead ultimately to a cleaner race. Michael Gorbachev, they're all in here, folks. Hillary Clinton, they all want us removed. All right, so that's it, all I got. I'm sorry this news is so depressing, but please protect your children. If you've got them in schools with Wi-Fi, take these studies to them, show the school, get health officials involved, or get your children out of Wi-Fi, get onto the Ethernet, disconnect from the TVs. I know it's hard to do in this society of a connected society, but it's your life, and life is dying. The regenerative principle is going away due to their agendas of Wi-Fi and hooking us all in. The smart everything is the mark of the beast. Smartphones, smart trains, smart cell towers. When you see the word smart, it is smart for them and dumb for us. Time to wake up, folks. Time to spread the word. That's it from A Plain Truth. We'll catch you on the next video, Doc, and thanks for all your support. Love one another. Peace out. In 50 years. That's 2 generations from now. Continuing, they're talking about stress and whatnot as being a cause, but a 2012 report represented the results of the study. Over 26,000 Frenchmen had fallen by a third in 1989 and 2005. A 2000 report in the UK presented the studies have done on one city. Sperm counts had declined 29% between 1989 and 2002. Recently, summer of 2017, Hebrew University, from over 43,000 North American, European, Australian, New Zealand men, concluded the average sperm count had fallen by almost 60% in the last 40 years. Now, a great number of that is within the last decade or two. And that needs to be addressed as all. But here's another article. Hey folks, welcome to another video from aplaintruth.info. Spermageddon. Now there's an agenda afoot, and we're going to cover it, and we're going to get into it, and it's not pretty, but still needs to get out there, folks. Sorry, it can't be better news, but this is the way it's going, and we need to address it. We need to stand up. We came here for a reason, and that was to address these major league concerns about the continuation of humanity on Earth, especially for our children, which we'll get into in a little bit. So this is from a January 27th article the other day. Human race could face being fertile in 50 years, researchers claim. Series of studies has shown a sharp decline in the sperm count of men during the last few decades. One researcher made a bleak prediction that will be infertile. This is from July 25th, 2017, kind of chronicling the research from the Hebrew study. It was not any small study. It was 185 studies, included almost 43,000 males who provided sperm samples. The chosen studies were distributed over nearly 40 years and among 50 different countries. The analysis included information on fertility status, age, ejaculation,